Canadians cannot afford to feed themselves in the depression in Canada. We're going to get onto just the unbelievable amount of demand in food banks across Canada, and just the insanity that is going on is like something from the Soviet Union, when the Soviet Union had the massive bread lines. And it's not just food bank usage that you're seeing. I mean, just look at this tweet that I put out here on X. So collect EI and sell blood plasma. Can I sell blood plasma while I am on EI, or will they take back some of my money? I mean, this is just some of the sad stuff that you're seeing, but this is the grim reality of what's happening here. And it gets much worse when you get into what's going on with food banks. So across 2024 has been a terrible year, and as a lot of these food banks are saying, they just expect the rise to continue in 2025. And that is with, oh yeah, interest rates are coming down. Yay, that's going to mean that everything's going to be okay now. But we know on this channel, unemployment is going up. And these charts are so crucial right now because really they show what's going on. So this Canadian food bank turns people away every day due to demand. So this is in Montreal. And basically they said here, so in January, for the first time in 40 years, we had to put people on a waiting list. January, particularly the worst time for food banks. You're also seeing some food banks actually restrict people from going there. So particularly international students, that's happening. Obviously, if international students are in Canada and they're relying on food banks, it's a terrible situation, but those people should actually have the means to stay in Canada to actually study here. So it's a bizarre situation that's going on, but it's because of just immigration and everything that's happened. We all know what is going on there. So in January, for the first time in 40 years, we had to put people on a waiting list. That's what's happening in Montreal. Monthly food bank use in Canada soars to record 2 million people. So Canada's reliance on food banks has soared to a grim new milestone. According to data from food banks, the organization said it recorded more than 2 million visits in March 2024, nearly double the monthly visits 5 years ago in March 2019. And, you know, obviously we're led to believe that the economy is actually much better after all these government distortions that happened in between. The government obviously never fixed anything when it came to the economy, and that is where you're beginning to see the veil actually slip off now, and what's under there is being revealed. And unfortunately, it's like a skeleton of an economy. So it's not just in the big Toronto and Vancouver. You're also seeing Calgary Food Bank here. So cost of living to blame as Calgary Food Bank demand rises while donations diminish. So people can't even afford to donate anymore either. So that's just becoming an even increasing problem now. So by the end of 2024, the Calgary Food Bank will have served almost 175,000 emergency food hampers, nearly 200% more than 2019. Again, you're just seeing these staggering numbers that just continue and continue here. And then if we go on to Edmonton, exactly the same thing. So soaring demand forces Edmonton's food bank to tighten restrictions on client visits. So they're coming in February. Executive director said about 45,000 people a month are now being served through the food bank's hamper program, roughly 10,000 more compared to this time 2 years ago. So you're seeing a massive increase there once again of people relying on the food banks in Edmonton. We'll go to some smaller places now. So like Kamloops, for instance. So Kamloops Food Bank fall food drive seeks donations amid unprecedented demand. The Kamloops Food Bank is in serious need of donations this weekend during its fall food drive as it deals with unprecedented demand from clients. So again, this is just the same thing. You know, Canadians cannot afford to eat, and that's what we're seeing. This is like something straight out of the USSR, which we're seeing actually unfolding in Canada. And of course, you see rising crime that happens alongside that. An actual food bank truck got stolen in Edmonton as well. It's just unbelievable what is happening. And then drastic increase of people turn to Waterloo Region Food Bank this year, the CEO says. We do expect that next year we will continue to see a rise, CEO Kim said in the recent press release. And another thing is, when you dig into why people are coming to the food banks, it's really interesting to kind of think about where we're going to be in 6 to 12 months. The reason why people are actually relying on the food bank. So whether it's the cost of groceries, the cost of fuel, or the cost of housing, all of these things are contributing factors to reason why someone may need to access food assistance. It's complicated. It could also be because of a sudden illness or a job loss. And obviously we know that unemployment has really started to rise in 2024. And in fact, if you pull this chart out further now, you can see that where we are with unemployment around 6.8%, you have to go back to 2021 when unemployment was at 6.9% at a similar level. And you just have to think of where the economy was back then and also where inflation was, because the cost of living has obviously increased drastically since back then. So there's even more pressure on people who are being put out of work. And that's why you have so many of these food banks. I mean, you just literally Google any city in Canada, and the sad reality is that the food bank usage is going through the roof, literally across the country. It's not isolated to Toronto and Vancouver. And, you know, some people would say, well, Halifax has lower home prices, so surely people aren't struggling there. No, it's the exact same thing, because home prices have still gone up relative to their historic norm, and wages haven't increased either. And that just compresses and compresses what people can afford, pushes more people into debt. And obviously, if you've got more and more people that are relying on these emergency assistances like food banks, then what does that mean is going on with their credit card bill, with their mortgage payment if they have one, or with their rent, which then affects the landlord, which then affects the person who's paying that mortgage, because we know most property in Canada has debt associated with it. That's one of the reasons that you know this is bubble, because if you look at the debt levels, that's what's been growing since 2003, and it's grown under all governments, conservative, liberal, and obviously the NDP as well. You've seen it grow under all of them. So that makes me extremely skeptical when you hear leaders of the opposition, like the Conservative Party, like they're going to do something when they get into power. Well, it's a question of why didn't they do it way back when they were presiding over the same bubble? It was just a smaller bubble. So it's really interesting, and it's going to be interesting to see what actually happens with this. And of course, another thing that we have to monitor here is the Canadian dollar, because the Canadian dollar compared to 2021, when it actually peaked out, its highest price point here, is now down around 16.44%. And a lot of currencies have fell. The pound has fell against the dollar. You've also had the euro that's fell against the dollar. So it hasn't happened in isolation, but obviously a lot of Canada's food imports come from the United States. So obviously if the currency is affected, one of the most major things that is impacted straight away, even if other things are going down in cost, is food. And obviously if you're a person that is just buying the bare necessities, you don't care about those other things that you're not buying, like a cell phone or a computer, that are coming down in price. You just care about the bare necessities, which is the cost of gas, the cost of food. And the cost of food is just expected to continue to soar this year because of the decline in the dollar, unless we really start to see a big turnaround in the Canadian dollar, which of course could happen because it is oversold at this point, and it could definitely have a huge rally within the long-term downtrend from where it is right now. So we'll have to continue to monitor the Canadian dollar, because obviously if you look at where that is right now, you can kind of think, well, is this situation with food prices going to get better for different people? And the reality is, unfortunately, it really doesn't look like it at this point. So anyway, guys, if you've enjoyed this video, I'd highly recommend that you check out this video here. And if you want to get access to exclusive content and perks, then go to buymeacoffee.com/marketmania. And if you want a VPN and to help support the channel, go to expressvpn.com/marketmania. I will see you